We've all seen the sentencing, the conviction of Brittany Griner to 9 years in prison, and that further compounds the injustice that's being done to her and her wrongful detention. We put forward, as you know, a substantial proposal that Russia should engage with us on. And what Foreign Minister Lavrov said this morning and said publicly is that they are prepared to engage through channels we've established to do just that, and we'll be pursuing that.
That was Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday after Russia said it was open to a prisoner swap involving WNBA star Brittany Griner. The case has become one of the most high-profile diplomatic negotiations in the world right now. On Thursday, Griner was sentenced to 9 years in prison and a $16,000 fine for drug smuggling and possession after she pleaded guilty to bringing 1 gram of cannabis oil into the country. Once court proceedings were over, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Russia was ready to discuss a prisoner swap through diplomatic channels and only through diplomatic channels, saying, quote, "No matter what anyone says publicly, this channel remains relevant." That seems like good news. So far, the Biden administration has been careful about how it talks about the diplomatic efforts behind the case. All we know is that the U.S. is looking for Russia to return Brittany Griner and another American being held there, Marine Corps veteran Paul Whelan, who was arrested in Moscow in 2018 after he was accused of carrying a USB drive with classified information. In exchange for them, the U.S. has offered the return of Victor Bout, a convicted Russian arms trafficker who's serving a 25-year prison sentence for conspiring to kill Americans. So why haven't we heard how Russia has responded to the U.S. officer or how long these negotiations will continue? One reason is because Russia has made it clear that being quiet is key. Their foreign minister said in a statement last week that they strongly urged a, quote, dialogue in the mode of quiet diplomacy. Now, it's unusual that we know as much as we do know about a possible prisoner swap. Traditionally, the public finds out about high-stakes exchanges only after they've completed because of how politically fragile that process is. But this hasn't been like any other swap. Griner is a high-profile WNBA star and a 2-time Olympic gold medalist with a large fan base. On Thursday, Griner's coach spoke about Biden's efforts to get Griner home.
Our government has really put themselves behind BG and is working really hard to bring her and all other Americans. And we're learning a lot more about international wrongly detained Americans than we ever had from this situation. And I know there's many other families experiencing this feeling too, but we're hopeful that soon this will be resolved. BG will be home.
So what's likely to happen next? Are there any precedents for this kind of diplomatic effort? And what could the Biden administration be prepared to do to get Griner home? Joining me now is Jamil Jaffer. He is an associate counsel. He was an associate counsel in the George W. Bush administration focusing on national security matters. And he is a founder and executive director of the National Security Institute at George Mason University. So, Jamil, was getting the conviction just a step that needed to happen to get to the next step, which is to actively start negotiating about a prisoner swap?
You know, Charles, it's a great question. Oftentimes with Russia, they've made clear that they need the person who's been charged with a crime to either admit guilt and or be sentenced or prosecuted to the completion of that process in order to do a deal with us. So we've seen that happen in the prior case of the Marine that we traded for a Russian pilot. So it's not unusual for the Russians to expect and to ask for Brittany Griner, as she did plead guilty, and then ultimately be sentenced. So that is the beginning of the process. We've already made our offer clear, as you laid out. They've made a counteroffer, so there's some sort of back and forth that's going to take place now about whether, in fact, the Russians are going to release Brittany Griner.
So Griner's attorneys have said they're going to file an appeal. You just said that Russians basically want the case wrapped up, right? The litigation to have stopped by the time they start talking about a swap. Griner's attorneys in Russia said that if it got in the way in any way, they'd stop their appeal. How does that dance work? Does the appeal complicate the negotiations at all, or are they barreling forward as if that is not happening?
Yeah, it could very well complicate the decision to make a deal. The problem, of course, is that the Russians have charged Brittany Griner and now sentenced her to a very extensive sentence, 9 years in prison for what amounts to 2 vape cartridges, and so it does seem like the punishment that she's being subjected to in Russia doesn't fit the crime. We, of course, know that she was taken prisoner and arrested in the week before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And you've heard the White House and the Biden administration, both the president and Secretary Blinken, make clear that it's their view that Brittany Griner is a political prisoner and that this sentence is completely out of whack with the charges. And so it's not surprising that she expects to appeal, but the Russians are probably going to want her to put that appeal down in order to do a deal. So we'll see how this plays out in the coming days and weeks.
So in April, Russia traded U.S. Marine veteran Trevor Reed, who was convicted of a physical altercation with a police officer in Moscow, for a Russian pilot in prison for cocaine trafficking conspiracy. How are these cases different and how they alike?
Well, they're different in the sense that Trevor Reed was in prison for a while, and as was the Russian pilot. Brittany Griner's been in prison or been arrested for a little bit less time. But she's obviously much more high profile, right? She's obviously a 7-time NBA All-Star, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, was in Russia to play for a Russian basketball team, which she had done for years. And so the Russians knew she was coming. They knew they were going to invade Ukraine. There's no doubt there's a lot more politics going on here than we were Trevor Reed. And so the question now becomes, can we do a deal with her and this other American, Paul Whelan, who's been in jail in Russia for a while? They want a much bigger prize, Victor Bout. We've now offered that. He's been sentenced to 25 years, much more than Whelan and Griner. They're now asking, though, for a Russian who's been convicted of life in prison in Germany, was what they're looking for. This gentleman who was convicted of Vadim Krasikov, convicted in Germany in December for killing a Chechen fighter. That's going to be hard for us to do. One, we got to convince the Germans. And two, these aren't the same things here.
So, the Russians seem to be upset that the Biden administration talked publicly about this. But there was so much pressure in this country to say more about Brittany Griner to try to get her home. And so there was internal pressure here in America on the administration to be more vocal. The administration was responding to that internal pressure. Did that internal pressure in any way hurt the efforts, in your opinion, to help get Brittany home sooner?
It's a really good question. I'm not sure it did, because we saw the Biden administration actually stay quiet for quite a while, for 3-4 months. Between February and around July, the Biden administration didn't say a lot. They hadn't responded to Sherelle Griner, Brittany's wife, who had called on them to do more. Brittany actually had to write a letter to the president, which he finally responded to. It took a while for the administration to do something publicly. And then it became clear to the Russians, I think, that they had us over the barrel. They saw the public pressure mounting with the trial beginning, and now they're trying to extract more concessions. So, yes, they're complaining about the public nature of this, but the Biden administration has made clear, look, we're offering a really good deal, frankly, a better deal than we ought to offer by offering the merchant of death, Victor Bout, 25 years in prison, accused of killing and trying to kill Americans, for Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan. That's the deal that should happen. The Russians are now saying they're upset. They want to get a better deal because they think they have us over a barrel.
So wait, what does a better deal look like? Another prisoner?
Yeah, they've asked for this guy, Krasikov, again, being held by the Germans, convicted to life in prison for murdering a Chechen fighter. We're potentially considering maybe this guy, Roman Selznev, a hacker that goes by the name Track2. He's been sentenced to 27 years here in the U.S. for bank fraud. So there is a potential another deal in the offing. The Russians just want more pride than we can give, which is this FSB officer in Germany who just got life in prison back in December.
So there's just been a lot of criticism of how the case has been handled. Griner has been held by Russia since February. Last month, Griner's coach posed this question: if it had been LeBron, he'd be home, right? Saying, quote, it's a statement about the value of women. It's a statement about the value of a black person. It's a statement about the value of a gay person. All of those things. We know it. And so that's what hurts a little more. Is that a fair criticism, do you think?
I think it's not unfair in the sense that, if it had been LeBron, I think we all think the Biden administration would have been under a lot more pressure. And so you got to ask yourself, well, why is it they're not under so much pressure for Brittany? Why were they able to stay silent for 4 months? Eventually, the pressure did build enough. The problem, of course, whenever there's pressure, whether it's LeBron or Brittany 4 months later or not, the Russians gain the advantage because with the public pressure in the United States, that gives them more incentive to try and get more, as we saw with the Iran nuclear deal. When the Iranians knew the Obama administration wanted it, they know the Biden administration wants it back. They're trying to extract more concessions. The Russians are playing this smart. Unfortunately, that is the situation we're in. The administration has to get Brittany back. They got to get Paul Whelan out. Russia knows it, and they're trying to get more concessions out of the administration.